Hello, everybody. Ian, Starship Adventures, and today I want to talk again about Logbook of the World. You know, I just got back from vacation, and we did some wonderful contacts up there on POTA. We worked a bunch of parks. We had a really good time. And one of the few frustrations that I had on the trip was Logbook of the World. Once again, proving to be extremely complicated to use. I found another reason why Logbook of the World is extremely complicated to use, and I've had all kinds of issues getting our POTA work put in there. And I went online and looked, and apparently, yeah, it's true. A lot of other people have had this trouble as well. And so I decided I would go ahead and make a quick video today about this. I don't think the ARRL really cares because you can go look, and about 50% of the comments you find on the Logbook of the World are negative. And on each of these, most of the complaints mention or are centered around the certificate setup process, which seems to be what stops everybody in their tracks. I know more people that are not using Logbook of the World that are very active hams than I know people who are active that are in the Logbook of the World. And the reason for that is because of about 5 or 10 different reasons here. And we're going to go through them all in this video. The number one thing has to be the setup. I don't know why the ARRL does things the way they do. This is just another example of something that's very old and very antiquated. And it just doesn't function well at all. It doesn't serve the people it's supposed to serve. And it's funny because the positive comments for ARRL, if you go look, most of them are active in some way in the ARRL. If you'll see, they say, I love Logbook of the World. I think it works great. And then I go look up their name, and yeah, they work for ARRL, or they're a field advisor or a tech specialist for ARRL, or they're with the NTS or whatever. Most hams out there that are just hams and don't have any skin in the game when it comes to ARRL will be honest and say, yeah, it is a cumbersome piece of crap. And so I want to go over today the problems that it has. And I don't expect anyone of importance at the ARRL to ever watch this video. But what I do hope is that you'll watch this video and decide that maybe in the future we just need to not use it or move on to something else. I'm currently still using Logbook of the World, but I've just about reached my wit's end with it. I spent 3 hours of my vacation putting in all of the locations for the parks that we worked, and I'll get into that later. I think one of the first things that we have to talk about is the certificate program and the TQSL program that has to be installed on your computer. This has to be installed on every computer that's going to report to the Logbook of the World. So if you have a tablet and a laptop and all this, it gets really complicated. You either have to send files around to other computers, or you have to find some other way to get it all to Logbook of the World, because this has to be set up in every computer. This program has to be resident on every computer that's going to send or receive anything from Logbook of the World. And I'm finding that, believe it or not, setting up this certificate process is the number one complaint about Logbook of the World. And it's all from a misplaced paranoid attitude that the ARRL seems to have. It's funny that they didn't do much to protect the back end of the system, but they are so worried about fraud when it comes to your contacts. It almost is a little strange. It's a hobby. We shouldn't have to spend 3.5 hours of our vacation time putting in all the locations of all the parks when that information's already there. The security's just over the top, and having to take your log file and make another kind of file out of it and then upload it and do all. It is ridiculous. And it's just over the top. There's other things like their certificate requests. I mean, this having to re-request a certificate all the time. You know, mine expired for no reason. It just expired. Why would it expire? I have a 10-year license with FCC. Why would they make my certificate for my logbook expire? I'm obviously going to be the same person with the same call sign after the 3 years as I was before the 3 years. So what is the purpose of creating an expiration date? Well, it's just because they love to frustrate people. This means that every 3 years or every so often, you have to go back and deal with this mess yet again. And it really sucks. It just keeps reminding you that these people really don't have any value. They don't see any value in your time and your effort because they make you go through this shit just to log your contacts. And it's ridiculous. And the fact that it's been going on for decades and it's still a complicated mess that looks like it was built on Windows 3.11 for work groups. Okay? I mean, if you look at this thing, it's terrible. The documentation on how to install it is a mess. It was written by people who do not know how to write things so that people will understand them. They were obviously written by volunteers that were just coming in trying to help. Whatever. I understand that. But the documentation is piss poor. Period. There's no way around it. I love one of the comments I see from all these ARRL people is, if you just followed the instructions, it would have worked fine for you. And the truth is, I followed the instructions and it didn't work well. And I followed the instructions when my certificate had just expired recently and it didn't work well again. The type of documentation that the ARRL has for this logbook of the world would never be tolerated in the public sector or the private sector. It's only acceptable in something like this, in a hobby. It's just ridiculous. This would not be accepted where I work, and it probably would not be accepted where you work or worked. And so it's really frustrating that this is what we have to deal with from an organization that spends $7 million a year on manpower alone, over half its budget, and they can't, in decades, fix this convoluted mess known as Logbook of the World. There's some other things, like when you first get started, they send you a card in the mail that you have to confirm. Okay, welcome to 1989. Okay, I don't know what to say. A card in the mail? They send it to your address that your FCC license is certified at. Well, you already have licensed at that address. Why would you need to requalify that you're living at that address? The FCC you did that when you got your license. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. And I think what they're trying to do is give you a perception of safety. They're trying to give you the feeling that they're really working hard to keep your data safe and to make sure that the contacts in here are real and to make sure that everything. But the truth is, you could never do that anyway. So why piss away all your time trying? Why waste time trying to prevent fraud that you can't prevent anyway? It's a hobby. Just move on. We're not dispatching ambulances, okay? Just make it easy for people. I think that all of the tens of thousands of amateur radio operators that have given up on Logbook of the World over the years would be in there today, and we would have many, many, many more confirmations than we have if they just would have taken all that certificate crap out of it. None of the other sites require it because it's stupid, okay? It's absolutely stupid. There's other things like it's a database that you have no control over. It's your data, but you have no control over your data. Once you submit a record, you can't delete it. You can't modify it. You can't fix errors that are in your log. I have 3 errors that I sent in a year and a half ago. And every time I download my logbook of the world back into my QSL or back into my QRZ page, I get 3 errors that they're duplicates. And logbook of the world will not allow me to delete those 3 entries. So for the last year and a half, I've had to clear this error off my screen. It's just stupid, okay? It's stupid that they don't allow you to just simply go in and delete line 93. Why would they not let you do that? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's your data, but you have no control over it. You can't even delete it. You can't even say, look, I want rid of all this. I don't want to be in Logbook of the World anymore. You really just, it's really just terrible how it's set up. And then we get to the hack that they had. I mean, early this year, they were hacked terribly. They were down for months. And it was absolutely ridiculous, the amount of information that was given to members about their system. It was ridiculous how long it took them to get it back up. And I felt that's another great example of how you've got a system here where they're so worried about fraud when it comes to contacts, but yet the system just sits there and gets hacked, and they still can't confirm what information was stolen from the system or if there was anything stolen. They say, well, there's nothing in the system that that could be hacked. It's all stuff that's on your FCC license anyway. Well, that's not true. There's phone numbers. There's credit card information when you apply for awards. You know, there's all kinds of information in there beyond what's on your FCC license. So, and we still don't know to what extent that breach allowed information out there, but we do know that it prevented people from uploading their QSOs for almost 2 months. I think another one of the biggest problems I have with it is with POTA this week. We went out with this last couple of weeks. I was up on vacation in the Georgia mountains, and POTA, the entire time we were doing POTA, I got back and I went to upload those Cabriello files, which have the location and everything right in the top of the file. And guess what? You can't do that. With Logbook of the World, you have to go in and manually create a new location for every single park that you're going to activate. Now, you would think they'd have a pull-down menu. You could just select the park, right? Wouldn't that be easy? You know, but no, they don't. No, they're the very antiquated programming they have there. No, and so when you go to upload your files, your Cabriello file to Logbook of the World, you have to define the location where those were done, which means you have to now go in and look up the Maidenhead grid square for each park. You have to look up all the different numbers and put them in there so that it will accept that Cabriello file for those 10 or 20 contacts that I made at that park. And so it turns parks on the air into a real pain in the ass if you want to get your contacts approved. There's just no two ways around it. It makes it really difficult. And so I spent a long time, over 3 hours, I spent on vacation putting in all the locations that we operated from when that information was in the top of the Cabriello file right off the bat. And it was all just duplicated effort because the people that built Logbook of the World many years ago didn't do a great job, and it has not been updated. And so now all the users bear the brunt of shitty programming and crappy updating. And that's just the bottom line. I don't know how else to say it. For people in like DXers, travelers, people that work POTA, SOTA, some of the other OTAs, it's too much trouble. We met up with 3 or 4 different people this last 2 weeks that were out working POTA. None of them logged their POTA contacts in Logbook of the World. They all do. They log them to QRZ, but they do not log them to Logbook of the World. I asked him why. Quote, the bullshit of having to make a different location for every park. There's thousands of parks. And there you go. There's just no two ways about it. That's what it comes down to. I think this is probably, once you get it set up, this is probably the biggest problem, because ham radio is becoming an adventure sport, and I like that. You know, I'm not even that physically fit, but we love to go places and put antennas up on top of mountains. We love doing it, and this really, it makes it more like a job when you get back to the tent or back to your cabin or back to home later. It seems more like a job now because I have to actually go in there and create all of these locations and look up the squares and look up all the information for these parks and get it all logged in there. Why is that not already there? That's what I want to know. Why would I not just select POTA and select the park number? Why? Why? Because nobody gives a shit. They don't update their program. They're still living in the 70s. It's ridiculous. It's just not worth the hassle for most people that are out there activating parks or activating summits or activating Walmart parking lots, or activating whatever it is they're activating. It's just not worth it to deal with Logbook of the World. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And all I can say is use QRZ. I use QRZ. Everybody I've run into running POTA is running QRZ. And that's how they're all getting their confirmations. And this brings me to the last thing I want to talk about here, which is the award processing for Logbook of the World. One of the reasons people used to really put up with the hassle of Logbook of the World is because they wanted the worked all this, worked all that. This is all just a gimmick to get your money. QRZ and many other places has all these same basic types of awards. And matter of fact, I find the QRZ award system to be much better, much more comprehensive, and it stays with you through through the development of your ham radio hobby. And where Logbook of the World doesn't, their awards process is very strict, very similar to boom, 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 boom. You hit these 3-5, you're done. And make sure you send in your money to get your certificate. If you look at the cost to get a printed certificate over at QRZ, it's a fraction of what it is to get your worked all states or whatever with Logbook of the World. And I just really feel like that Logbook of the World is all based around these few awards that they give out, worked all states, worked all continents, whatever. And they seem to worry about fraud when it comes to that. And the truth is, nobody really cares about those awards as much anymore. There's so many other places out there where you can go and be with other like-minded people and get your awards there. And that's QRZ, EQSL. There's a bunch of different places out there. And so I hope that it's someday in the future, Logbook of the World just goes away and QRZ becomes what takes over. I think that would be good. To have one focal point or two focal points for all your confirmations. But Logbook of the World's not it. They have not earned the right to do this. They've been around for a long time, and it's still so basic and so simple and so, I don't know, old and antiquated like everything else at the ARRL. The ARRL they have an extraordinary ability at the American Radio Relay League to take a simple concept and make it so user complex that nobody wants to use it. Congratulations, guys. Good going. If you wonder why 5% of the hams use Logbook of the World and the other 95% don't, it's your stupid setup process. It's your ignorant location setting process. It's your antiquated program. It's shit being down for months at a time. Logbook of the World is proven to be cumbersome. It's obtuse to its users. It doesn't care. They don't care how hard it is for you to use it. They don't care that you're having problems with it. If they cared about the fact that all these tens of thousands of people were never able to get it going on their computer, they would have fixed the bullshit. They would have made it work. But they never did. because they don't give a shit. That's the bottom line. It's confusing. Ham radio people are some of the smartest people in society. And if half of them can't make this work, what else do I need to say? Okay? It's kind of a PR disaster for ARRL. But the problem is there's so many of these dyed-in-the-wool sad hams that just go on supporting the old antiquated systems because that's what they've always done. I'm a lifetime member of ARRL, and I support everything they do blindly and everything. Well, whatever. The only thing that ARRL still has going for it is all the blind support from all the old-timers that have lifetime memberships or have this feeling that this is what I have to do to save my hobby. And the truth is, they're getting down to just lifetime members. That's why they don't have enough money to survive anymore. So, if they wanted to fix Logbook of the World, they could have. But they didn't. They could have rewrote an entire new Logbook of the World and bought a brand new server rack for it to run on and put it back in place in half the time they took to recover from that hack. I want you to think about that. They could have implemented a brand new Logbook of the World, running on a brand new equipment, in a new location, fresh, working great, written by professionals that you pay to write it. And they could have had it out in less time than it took them to recover from the hack and put us right back on the same old antiquated system yet again. Way to go, ARRL. Fading into obscurity every day. All right, guys. That was a little depressing one. Hopefully the next one will be a little better. But Logbook of the World, what a mess. Especially when you do a lot of different locations for your contacts. So if you have to use it, good luck. Follow the instructions very closely, okay? And don't get your TQ5 and your QSL6 and your TQ9s and 10s mixed up, okay? And I hope to see you down the log, maybe over on QRZ, though. And I hope to see you guys on the next adventure. My name's Ian, and this is Starship Adventures. We'll see you on the next one.